in the past several months in Magic Mind, you have completely shifted your your perspective on sales, the way that you show up, right? Like your kind of business model, what you're focusing on, selling your one-on-ones, right? And at a certain point towards the end of last year, I'll let you share it in your own words, but it kind of felt like, okay, am I going to keep doing this? Like, what's going on? What's happening? Where do I want this to go? And then in January, having sales that were coming in, clients re-signing and having that kind of reignited fire. I would love to hear about that, that reignition for you in your business, going from do I burn this thing down to like, oh my gosh, I'm celebrating a huge month in January.
Yeah. So I think the place that brought me to, can I do this? Like, am I going to burn it down? Was going through a really personal upheaval and having to take that time off. That also meant that I accrued a ton of debt, and that was super stressful. I think that's something that people do not talk about enough in the coaching industry, right? I
Yeah.
had invested, and then I had to live off of my savings, and then I had to reinvest to, get back into my business. And as a lot of, you can call it dark night of the soul, you can call it an underworld journey, like these growth periods go, you cannot predict the timeline on these. The
Yeah.
healing from it is gonna go faster than your maiden, or maybe like, capitalist driven inner self would want it to be, right? People are like, okay, let me do my healing for like a week, and then, I'll be back just in time to do this next launch or whatever. It doesn't work
Yeah.
like that. And there were a lot of things. I think there was the deepening of my work because of what I'd gone through and having to navigate this re-emergence from the underworld. Anytime we go through a really big initiation, you also go through a rebirth. And I was in that middle period for a long time. And it was really hard. It's hard to run a business when you're like, who the fuck am I? What is my work? What am I passionate about now? Maybe some of the things that you taught before, you're like, that doesn't really resonate, or I don't really want to teach it like that anymore. My values have changed. I've changed. I think, like, just for context, I'm now in year like 3, 4, 5 of my entrepreneurial journey. And I think it's a maiden to mother journey of entrepreneurship. I think a lot of entrepreneurs who are this far into the years have gone through at least one of these. And I don't think that we
Mhm.
talk about it enough. And I really was struggling financially and with my work, with my identity. And it just felt like too much. It just felt like, holy shit. And I think it was a really sobering moment of, okay, Anne, this is really what entrepreneurship is. It's not all sunshine and rainbows and having a nomadic life and doing whatever the fuck you want to do all the time, right? It was like a reality check for my maiden. And it was a moment of, okay, like, if I know the joys and I know the things that are so beautiful about having a business, and now I have a really sobering reality of also what it takes that isn't easy, the things that
Yeah.
can be really hard. And I actually had a conversation with my mom because I'm also in a certain age where I want to start a family. I'm living in the Bay Area. Shit is so expensive. And, she just told me, luckily, I have, even though my mom is an Asian mom, we very stubbornly, lots of personal growth, lots of applying my work to our relationship. We've gotten to a
Yeah.
point where she's really loving, but she did say to me, Anne, like, you wouldn't be a failure if you got a corporate job, if you wanted to, you know, make easy, consistent money from that. And it doesn't mean you have to give up your dream. It doesn't mean that you don't have to help people forever, but like, you could do that. And I think this happens a lot with growth, and I think times where we're really like pushed into just embodying our next level identity, our next edge. it's
Mhm.
almost like you have to go all the way to the other side. Like give your nervous system the permission to go all the way to the other side. Like I tell my friends this when they're like in a like, do I stay with this person or do I break up with them? Like, and they're
Mm.
avoiding so much breaking up. I'm like, what if you just let yourself entertain, even in your nervous system, leaving? What would that actually mean? Right.
Yeah.
When we have that scope, I think we can make clearer decisions, even though it's painful. And so I had to go all the way to like, what if I did quit? What if I did get a corporate job? What if I did go back? But also, I know myself. And I mean, I led protests at Google about like their sexual assault cases. Like, I hate,
Wow.
like, I just knew myself. I would never be able to, as soon as I came back into a corporate job, I'd be dreaming of how to leave, right? I think when you have a
Yeah.
purpose, when you have a dharma inside of your heart, if you're listening to this, there's something calling you to be a coach. Like, that's just never really gonna go away. And that doesn't mean like going back is bad or anything like that, but I just
Mhm.
know that desire would never die. And so I decided to connect, find the easiest, most doable thing. And I actually, that was like my mantra through depression. What's the easiest, most doable thing that I could reach for that would be any sort of nourishment for myself during that time? So I did the same thing with my business. What's the easiest, most doable way to reconnect to the pleasure, to what I love in my business? And for me, it has always been my clients. Always, always, always. There has never been a single fucking day in my coaching career that I haven't loved coaching. I love it, you know?
Yeah.
And so I put out an offer that was 15 one-on-one sessions. I think it's really good for people to hear this too. You know, I had made 150 grand. I sell 10K coaching packages, but I was humble enough to say, I just want people in the door. I was clear in my heart. I just want to connect to my service. So I sold 15 one-on-one sessions for 147 each. And I think that's also just a good lesson to people. Like, don't let your ego get in your way. Sometimes when it's aligned and when it's coherent, not when you're doing it out of like, oh, like, you know, I'm totally unworthy, but it was just like, fuck it. I want it to be so easy. And so I did those sessions. Obviously, that made me about like $2,000. And then it was like I got to connect to the humans on the other side of the screen. I think
Yeah.
every entrepreneur knows what it can feel like to scream into the void and be like, I'm showing up every day. Is anyone listening to me? And to get to do those sessions, one, I'm a bomb ass fucking coach. And so the results and everything that happened in those sessions refueled me. Connecting to people who truly love my work, need my work, are impacted by my work was such a beautiful motivation. And, you know, I think that those things just then sort of I'm doing hands like a snowball effect. The snowball going down the hill, right? It just gets bigger and bigger. And, you know, that poured over into my existing one-on-one clients and my confidence. And a couple of them re-signed. I signed on a new one-on-one client. And so I ended up having like a 22K month in January, which is,
Yes.
you know, very nice and good for just giving a little juice in my tank. And I think really, even now, a few months out of it, it is this journey of growing into my like devoted, almost like mother version of business, where
Mhm.
it is about rooting in deeper into the purpose and the legacy and the why more so than I do my ego. And that
Yeah.
feeling like what's actually going to fulfill me and sustain me in the long term. And yeah, because of that too, also because of your coaching and all of that, like I really decided to double down on just selling my one-on-one coaching. And for anyone listening to this, I had fun classes like BJ blowjob classes. I had group programs. I had orgasm programs that were like so fun and shiny. I had a program called School of Super Pleasure. I, you know, had all of the things and they were successful. But I think something about maturing in my entrepreneurship, and this applies to all of life, is just to really be like, what season am I really in now? And doing
Mm,
the work it takes to be like, what do I really need? What does my business really need? What does my body of work really need? And I think right now it's working really intimately with people. I think getting into the deep transformation to have my body of work emerge through applying the work with people in a really deep and intimate and long-term way. I just know and I trust that like future courses, future things, my whole body of work is going to be born through this. And also the podcast, right? Like that was, I
yes.
feel like that's also a deeper mother devotion, because a podcast is, it's more depth, it's more longevity, it's not the quick hits of Instagram, it's not the quick hits of like, you know, each post or making a reel or anything like that, although all those things take work too.
Yeah.
But I've really devoted myself to like birthing that in this past month, because there is this like, I am that tree. These are the fruit. This is the longer, deeper body of work that I want to give to the world. And so, yeah, that's like the journey. And you and our Magic Mind community and everything have just been such a big support through it. Um, but yeah, well, I haven't recapped it like that, but I really hope it's helpful, because I think there's so many
Yeah.
aspects of that people don't talk about in business.
Yeah. Thank you so much for being so vulnerable and honest and open and sharing. I think the more that we can be honest about these moments of entrepreneurships and the ebbs and the flows, the more we normalize being human in business and navigating the waves of business, right? Where it isn't always just like start your own business, connect to your pleasure, the end, happily ever after, right? It's like we're so used to like every Disney movie is like they get married and then happily ever after, like everything's good after that. It's like, no, you find your purpose and then there's still waves and lessons and quantum crumbling, things falling to the ground, life being rearranged, right? And we're still always constantly learning lessons upon lessons of what you said earlier, like life happening through you and for you and about you, right? And the work and the medicine and the magic. And so that comes through massive shifts and up levels, and it doesn't always just feel like clouds parting and rainbows coming out of your ass. It's like sometimes it really is like bring you to your knees moments in life, right? And I've done the best that I can and will continue to always be very open on this podcast as well as in all of my work about those moments of like, hey, this launch did not go the way I thought this would, or this project, this thing completely flopped, or this I put this out there and I felt so disappointed and so discouraged. It's like these are the natural waves of emotions of entrepreneurship, and it's not about bypassing them, and it's not about pushing them to the side or ignoring them. It's about how can we hold that more? How can we hold more of it and talk about it and normalize it? And when we allow there to be expanded capacity for these emotions and for these waves, then we also have the ability to bring it to spaces like a mastermind, a coaching container, right? A one-on-one mentor where Anne didn't just suffer in silence. She brought it to us. She brought it to me to get coached on, to get support, to just be loved and witnessed and held, honestly, right? As she moves through this. And there's so much power in just releasing and, bringing this to a space where that you're going to not be judged. That you're going to be in an environment where you will be challenged to grow and to up level, right? And also what I want you to see here too is it's not that Anne or anyone in this position really is like, okay, well, let me just implement this perfect strategy that's like a five-step formula. And this one thing that Anne did, it's like, this is why I really don't spend a lot of my time teaching specific strategies because they're always shifting and changing, right? What Anne did was she listened to the spirit of her business and she listened to her intuition. She listened to what felt most right and what felt simplest, right? That's something we worked on a lot is like, how can we let sales be easy? How can we let things be simple, right? The path of least resistance. Like it isn't the craziest, most complicated, advanced, like 4-step, 5-step, 6-step thing that we can all plug together. It's like, this just feels alive for me today and this is what I can feel like I can do today. I'm going to do that thing and then there you go, right? It's the foundation of the energetics, the foundation of not necessarily being happy or excited or high vibe, but more so I'm really connected to my movement. And even if I'm not feeling 100 right now, I'm still connected to my movement. And what Anne said of like, being connected to her clients from day one, right? So what is that greater movement? Because when we just focus on the money and we focus on the money and we focus on the money, we hope that the money just expands that way, but that's actually not how money expands at all. And that hasn't been my experience at all. Money has always been a byproduct of me loving my clients so fiercely and over delivering and spending a lot of time coming up with really great ways of teaching, of stories, of analogies, of programs, containers, concepts, so they can root in this work and not just say, wow, Tiffany, that was really good, but oh, wow, this is where I am now being influenced to shift in my own life. And now I'm going to take that and expand it in my own community, in my own business. That is what, true life-changing, perspective shifting leadership should be like and should embody. And yeah, just hearing that, from your perspective and everything you've moved through, like, yeah, and that's so 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 beautiful. Yeah, anything to add on that before we go into the
I
last?
just want to thank you for your leadership. I mean, I remember listening to podcasts of you talking about these things, talking about changes you made and the emotions that you moved through. And that was so much of what made me feel safe bringing it. And
Mm.
yeah, I just am so grateful for your leadership and the container that you hold and the way that you really do walk us through in in sex and love and motherhood and business, like all of the real, and so
Yeah.
anyone listening to this, I mean, I know you already love Tiffany, but just to reflect back to like your genius. And yeah, for everyone to know like you are someone who does have that perspective and can hold that. And I think that's so important to have people in your corner and in your side that do have this really holistic view, this very real view, and that can hold, especially if you are like us who are soul led, heart led, very feminine leaning entrepreneurs, to have someone who can really understand that side of you and be on your team. And I also feel like the rest of the community in Magic Mind has been that too. And you cultivated just such a beautiful I would say your gift I see is you really know how to build community into containers. And I think you really built this community of, hey, like we're not here just to. I asked you this on our sales call for Magic Mind. I'm like, I don't really want to be in a space where it's like, okay, I'm just getting in line to get my coaching and like I'm sort of like tuned out, like I was ready to be in a season where I actually was connected and invested in the other people's businesses. And I think
Yeah.
through you encouraging us to peer coach one another, having the type of calls where we could unmute and all support each other, and you're not the only coach in the room. It really was this like matriarchal, we're in a circle, we're equals. Obviously, like you're also our leader in ways, but um I just think that is such a big part of your genius and such a gift that you
Mm.
gave through this. So I do want to make sure to like speak to that and give you gratitude for that too. It's definitely the most feedback that I've ever gotten too from other people on my work and my
Mm.
copy and like their encouragement. out of I think maybe any of maybe the masterminds or groups that I've been in before. They've all been great in their own ways. But particularly, I think the specific feedback of knowing that these people are intimate with my work, intimate with me. Literally, like, I just want to give a really practical example. Like, I was nervous about launching my podcast, and you so graciously, Tiffany was like, okay, I'm gonna go through your Instagram and we could probably pull a bunch of topics that would be really cool, and like here are things that I would really want to hear from you. And
Yeah.
like that meant so much to me. And you posted it in our group thread to be like, okay, everyone, go to Anne's Instagram and tell her, like, and it just, I think that vibe, that like true caring, that level of feedback was just something that really blew me away. It meant so much to me. And I think anytime you're embarking on a really big project, like being on a podcast, you're always like, oh, do I have anything good to say? Does anybody care? Like, and you reflected to me even aspects of myself that I had judged, like, oh, no one wants to care about that. That's just like a side piece of me or whatever. And
Yeah.
it was just such a beautiful experience. So yeah, if anyone's
Mm.
thinking about working with you, like fucking do it.
Oh,
Yeah, just the community in there was so great. I think to also be in a space that was diverse and to feel like I could just talk talk freely about all of the things that I'm passionate about and the things that I care about without self-censorship, without worrying about like, is this secretly like a spiritually bypassing like kind of person who doesn't have my back? Like that
yeah.
was really, really powerful.